Hello Kitty Island Adventure released just last week, and after spending every waking moment playing it, I can confidently say I think you're either gonna love it or absolutely hate it. And hopefully this video will help you figure out which one is gonna be for you. Now, when this was first announced to be coming out, the internet went absolutely wild for it, for two very different reasons. The first group of people were excited to be playing a brand new life sim, which will not only let you hang out with your favorite Sanrio characters, but also let you become your very own Sanrio character as well. The other side of the internet, however, were just losing their minds over the fact that South Park correctly predicted this game.
Butters, you said you're on your computer all the time.
Yeah, but I'm playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Now, if you didn't already know, Hello Kitty Island Adventure was first actually released in 2023 as an Apple Arcade exclusive, and it wasn't until last week that it finally came out on the Nintendo Switch and PC. And I personally picked this up to see if it would finally be a game that would fill the Animal Crossing sized hole in my heart that was left when I burnt myself out on it a couple of years ago. Now, I think many people have assumed that because this is a life sim, this will be incredibly similar to Animal Crossing. And although there are definitely some similarities, like the fact that the villagers go out of their way to make you feel loved and make you feel like you belong, you can also craft items and even decorate as well, this does a lot to set itself apart. First of all, we finally don't have to be the only human on an island filled with animals. You get to create your very own Sanrio character, which I absolutely love. And the best part is, as you progress through the story, you'll get even more customization options, and you can change how you look as many times as you want. This also comes with an entire story, where your character crash lands in an abandoned theme park alongside all of the other Sanrio characters, and you set out together to try and restore it. And one thing I love is the fact that almost all of the characters have a purpose to being on the island. So for example, Hello Kitty opens up a bakery store, My Melody has a furniture store, and Cinnamon Roll's job is to deliver the mail. But the real question everyone's been asking is, does this game do enough to justify the price tag? As I gotta admit, this wound up being a little bit more expensive than I expected it to be. Now, the gameplay loop itself doesn't feel anything like Animal Crossing, and if I was going to liken it to anything, it'd actually be Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete Edition, as the gameplay itself is actually based around completing different quests for each of the villagers. And this normally comes down to being some sort of fetch quest, seeing you traverse the absolutely massive map in order to find the items that you need. And don't worry if this map seems daunting, thankfully there is fast travel. Now, usually for me, the most frustrating part of a fetch quest is actually finding the items that they're asking for. But the game gives you a choice. You can either choose to just go off and look for the things that the game's asking you to find, or you can turn on something called the guiding light, which will literally lead you to wherever you need to go. For the most part. There are a few quests where they'll just get rid of this entirely and you have to rely on other things, but most of the time you can use this to figure out where you need to go. This made what could have been a very frustrating part of gameplay into something that was a little bit easier and therefore a bit more fun. And the thing that stops these quests from getting too repetitive is actually the writing, as every now and again this would catch me completely off guard in the best possible way. And to me, the writing took this from being something that could easily be made to feel like a kid's game into something that kind of felt like it was made for me. And it had me looking forward to each and every part of the main storyline quests, because you never really knew what to expect from the game or even its gameplay. As even though the main storyline was mostly full of fetch quests, every now and again they'd throw in some completely different elements to just really spice up the gameplay. But by far one of my favorite parts about the main storyline was when you needed to enter one of the temples, as each temple is filled with different puzzles for you to encounter and solve, and some of them are absolutely massive. And I found myself constantly hoping that the next main storyline quest I unlocked was going to be another temple. But completing quests isn't the only thing that you can do in Hello Kitty Island Adventure. as you could spend your time scaling cliffs to try and get to the brand new areas. And it kind of surprised me to see a stamina mechanic similar to that of Breath of the Wild. As you complete the story more, you'll realize that you're not even limited to just the land, and you can actually go under the water and explore there as well. You are also tasked with trying to find and take pictures with as many of the Guditamas as you possibly could. And I don't know what's more impressive, the number they managed to hide across the island, or the fact that every single one you find is completely unique and in a very different pose. And honestly, it brought me so much joy finding them and taking pictures with them. It was such a fun mission to add throughout the entire game. There's also a series of different cooking stations littered across the map for you to make gifts for the villagers. You can also catch bugs and fish, and even an equivalent of a museum to submit them to. There's also so many different mini games for you to find, some of which are really well hidden. And there's even seasonal events to take part in too. This for me is one of the weakest parts of Hello Kitty Island Adventure, if I'm being honest. This just felt a little bit lackluster compared to the other life and farming sims that we're used to, as the events more or less come down to it being running around, finding some items on the floor and trading them in for themed items that you can put in your house. So less of an event and more of just like a themed shop, which I was hoping for a little bit more. So now we're on to the part that will probably be a deal breaker if the price hasn't already put you off. You see, in Hello Kitty Island Adventure, each of the characters has both main storyline quests, friendship quests, and even side quests for you to do. And to unlock them, you'll need to get each of the characters to a certain friendship level. Now, leveling up the friendship is in theory pretty easy. All you need to do is give them a present, and the more they like it, the more their level goes up. The issue is the game limits you to 3 gifts per in real life day. Now this really surprised me, as the actual game itself doesn't run on our time. It has its very own day-night cycle. Now add on the fact that there's login bonuses for every single time you boot up the game, you'll realize that this is something that is designed to be played in short bursts every single day, rather than being a game that you can sit down and play for however long you want to. Now this by no means is a new mechanic to Cozy Games. It's very similar to the way Cozy Grove and Cozy Grove 2 works, and even Animal Crossing did this by making you wait literal days for each of the buildings to be made. But the issue is, when you're enjoying a game and you are forced to put it down and go find something else to play, it's not really always a fun experience. And the quests aren't actually the only limit either. Every item there is to collect or gather, be it wood, rubber, or anything else, is also limited to a certain number of items per day as well. So you might not even be able to complete the quest you finally unlocked if you're unable to gather all of the materials you need that day. And if you're sat here going, well, I'll just do what I did in Animal Crossing and time travel, the game has specifically stated that if you time travel, you will break the game and you'll have to restart your entire save all over again. So there is categorically no time traveling allowed in Hello Kitty. Now I will say, unlike Animal Crossing or even the likes of Infinity Nikki, this won't penalize you for not logging in daily. But I'll also say the way they've done it doesn't always make logging in each day feel rewarding. The issue is, not every single level that you level a character up will give you a brand new quest. Sometimes it will give you stamina points, other times it will be decorating items. Also, as you progress the game, it gets harder and harder to level up each of the characters. Meaning that sometimes you'll give every single villager in the town their 3 gifts for the day, and either you'll level up some of the characters and get given no story quests, or you might not even be able to level up anyone at all. So that means some days you'll have no story quests whatsoever, and other days you may end up with some pretty lengthy quests to go and tackle. So you can't really predict whether you're going to be playing this for 1 hour each day or 3 hours. It just depends where the level up falls. Now, they have tried to mitigate this problem by adding in a few different features. So for example, each day you'll have 3 daily quests that can be completed. They also have a villager visiting system, so you can go and check on your phone which villagers could potentially be visiting. You can then go to one of the cabins, see what items need to be put in each cabin for them to come stay on your town. Then when they visit the next day, you can talk to them, complete a quest, and try and level up their friendship to convince them to live on the island. And although I found that a lot of fun, the gameplay restriction was ultimately a little bit frustrating, especially in the early days of the game. And I found myself breaking the game ever so slightly, trying to get into areas I wasn't meant to get into yet, just to find something else to do. Now, there is one feature in Hello Kitty that worries me ever so slightly, and that is a mechanic which feels like it could be a microtransaction in the future, and this is the flower bouquets. They've added in 3 separate items that are just used to extend the amount you can play the game for each day. This is the Friendship Blossom. This will reset the daily gifts a single villager will accept. Then you have the Friendship Bouquet, which does the same, but for all villagers at the same time. And finally, you have the Island Bouquet, which brings back all of the items that you can go around and collect for the day. Meaning that if you've either run out of quests to do or run out of the ability to complete any of the quests, you can give yourself another chance to do that and effectively skip to the next day of gameplay. Now, I started the game with 3 of each thanks to the gifts that you got at the very start, so I did manage to extend my gameplay for the first couple of days. However, these items are not easy to get a hold of. I believe you can get them sometimes as login rewards, or for completing collections in the museum. And although this isn't a microtransaction yet, I can't help but feel like this was set up to potentially become one. And sadly, as you only get a limited number of these, you're going to be faced with the issue of running out of things to do very often. And I can only see this issue getting worse the longer that you play, as the game gets even grindier to level up each of the characters. Now, in Animal Crossing, one of the easiest ways to find your own fun was to decorate. And although you can decorate in Hello Kitty, it's not nearly as detailed, nor is it as fun. Because even though you have your very own house to build, you can also decorate all the other cabins to try and encourage other villagers to come and visit. There isn't a whole lot you can do with the items in the game. Placing items on top of other items isn't as seamless as I'd like it to be. They always place in awkward positions, and you can often only put one item on top of something else. So this doesn't give you nearly as much detail as you could use in Animal Crossing. The camera angle is locked even when you're decorating as well, unlike Animal Crossing, meaning that you can't get all the different angles or make things look nearly as pretty that way either. So even if you are someone who really enjoys decorating, which isn't me, you're still pretty limited and you're not going to find a whole lot of gameplay time in that either. Next up, let's talk about multiplayer, as I know a lot of people were really interested in the fact that you could play this 2-player. First thing to note, this is not a cross-platform game, so this means you can only play multiplayer with someone on the same device as you are. Secondly, you can't both run around an island doing your own individual quests. Once you get far enough in the game, you'll unlock some multiplayer quests, which you can do with a friend, but once you've done all of those, there's not really anything else for you to do. For me personally, I wish the multiplayer aspects were just a little bit more. I feel like Animal Crossing, Disney Dreamlight Valley, and so many of these other life sims are lacking just things to do when you're with other players and a reason to hang out together. And sadly, this didn't give me much of one. Performance-wise, this runs okay on the Nintendo Switch. Loading scenes weren't too bothersome. I did notice some stuttering every now and again while running around as things loaded in, but hopefully this is something they can patch later. It definitely looks way nicer than I was expecting, and even with the stuttering, it wasn't something that annoyed me particularly. And actually, what wound up being the most frustrating thing was actually the controls. It seemed to constantly switch between sometimes using A for things, then sometimes using Y, and I kind of wound up just button mashing and hoping I'd press the right one, which felt a little bit weird, as normally games on the Nintendo Switch have very similar controls. One thing people either love or hate about this is the fixed camera angle, and as someone who gets motion sick an awful lot, I do appreciate it, but it definitely wasn't done as well as it was in Animal Crossing. There were times where it felt awkward and like it got in the way, and it only really felt super restrictive when you were trying to decorate indoors. So with all that being said, is the game worth its hefty price tag? I think the answer is yes, but also no. For me personally, I see no reason to recommend the deluxe edition whatsoever. Unless you're someone who's played this extensively on Apple Arcade and just wants to get a head start in getting back to where you were before. You see, the thing is, the DLC is not a DLC in the traditional sense. You are not getting exclusive gameplay content. Instead, you are getting a series of over 300 clothing and accessories from the previous in-game events that happened on Apple Arcade. But these are items that you can get just by playing and grinding yourself. They are not locked behind a paywall. You also get the bouquets that we talked about earlier, allowing you to get through gameplay a little bit faster and being locked out of content less each and every day, helping you speed along the main story. And you also get some crafting resources to take down that grind as well. And one thing that isn't mentioned when you do purchase the deluxe edition is the fact that you won't gain access to all of these items at the very start of the game. Instead, I think it took me between 10 and 12 hours to get to the point where you finally unlocked it all. But by getting these items, you are effectively limiting the amount of content you will get to do yourself. So do bear that in mind, which is why I don't really recommend it. Now, is the base game worth it? I think the answer is maybe. I decided to ask you guys how you felt about Hello Kitty, and this is what you had to say. Out of the 2,400 people who voted, 7% said they regretted buying the game, 32% said it's okay, but they wish they waited till it was cheaper or on sale, 35% said they were happy with their purchase, and 26% said they were in love with the game and they were so happy they got it. And I think my opinion mirrors a lot of those that I saw in the comment section. This is a fantastic game as long as you know what you're getting into. For the most part, most of the quests are pretty mindless, and even though there are some fantastic moments that see you do some absolutely wild things I never thought I'd expect to see in a Hello Kitty game, it is sandwiched between a lot of fetch quests, some gameplay that some people might find mindless, whilst others like myself enjoy playing while sat down watching my favourite TV show or film. This is probably the closest a cozy game has come so far to replicating the magic of Animal Crossing. And I'm such a fan of the fact that this is a life sim where you don't have to make your own fun. There's always some sort of goal for you to work towards, be it daily quests, weekly quests, or even the story. But this also means that this is a life sim with an end, as once you've completed every quest the game throws at you, apart from the seasonal events, it doesn't leave you much else to do. So whether this game works for you or not is fully dependent on whether you can see yourself picking this up repeatedly week after week and really getting your money's worth. Because although I'm enjoying it now, there's an awful lot of cozy games coming out in the next month, and I'm not sure whether I'm still going to pick this up over a game that lets me play endlessly in the next month. I think my view personally is it's hard to justify its full price. If this goes on sale, I'd recommend it in a heartbeat, but it fully depends on if you can see yourself finding time in your daily routine to play it, especially for this price. But then again, it's a game they constantly update, so we may get our money's worth just a little bit further down the line. Let me know how you're enjoying it in the comments down below. And if you want to see 25 cozy games I am the most excited for in 2025, click this video here.